Hi everyone, and welcome back to the channel. The entire winter has been so busy in here. Between all of the enclosure upgrades I've been working on, baby garter snakes being born, rescuing a blind leopard gecko and the special care that it needs, and just the regular everyday care that all these animals require. The work never stops, but it's always a labor of love. And a lot of things had changed in here over the winter, but spring is finally here, and I thought a good way to celebrate that would be with an updated reptile room tour. I'm really excited to show you all the changes I've made to the reptile room since my last tour and give you a chance to escape your daily life for just a few minutes and enjoy seeing all of my amazing cold-blooded pets and the beautiful bioactive habitats they live in. One thing I love about this room is I have an Echo Dot in the corner, and I can say, Alexa, play night sounds.
Night sounds from Genie's Spotify.
Or I can say, Alexa, play daytime sounds.
Daytime sounds from Genie's Spotify.
And having some natural ambience in the room makes this room more peaceful than it already was to start with. I'll start with the first thing you see when you walk into the room, and that is this 50-gallon paludarium for my American bullfrog, Lucille. Lucille is a big frog and has just as big of a personality. You might have seen the video recently about the feeder fish that survived and had been living with Lucille. I named it Neptune. Well, after several weeks, and just as I was starting to like this fish, Lucille finally ate him. So instead, I added a group of 3 mystery snails to share the paludarium with Lucille. Next to Lucille, on top of the leopard gecko cabinet, is one of the newest vivariums in the room. And this is a 12 by 12 inch Exoterra Nano that's home to a growing number of white lip globe snails and their friend, a baby bumblebee dart frog that I named Sunshine. I didn't plan on getting Sunshine, but I went into a Petco store to buy mealworms, and they had a small Exoterra terrarium with several baby dart frogs. The only thing in this terrarium was some reptile carpet and a shallow water bowl. It was obvious the humidity was very low, and some of the frogs were already looking bad. It was really upsetting because I knew they wouldn't live long in those conditions. I couldn't afford to buy them all, but I couldn't leave without saving at least one of them. So I brought this one home. Aside from the fact that the pothos cuttings that I put in here are not doing too well, I have to say that this has been one of my favorite vivariums, and it's brought me so much joy. I love babies, and watching the baby snails and frog together is almost too much cuteness for any one person to handle. And below the snails is the cabinet that I converted into enclosures for my two leopard geckos, Laverne and Puff. I've had Laverne for quite a while now, and she's become very friendly and well socialized. And she's a big girl as far as leopard geckos go. She has a lot of different nooks and crannies between all these rocks to hide and sleep in. She also has this sort of cave with a ceramic tile that has a heat mat and thermostat, as well as a deep heat projector above. And below Laverne is Puff, who is a fairly new member of the family. Puff is a beautiful albino leopard gecko, and the PetSmart store near me had Puff and discovered that he is blind and they couldn't sell him, so they asked me to take care of him. Puff can't see well enough to catch his food, so he has to be hand-fed. And I keep his setup fairly simple and don't change it around because he'll just bump his face into everything. And it's been quite a learning experience to work out how to best care for Puff. He spends a lot of time staying hidden in his warm side hide, but I know that he's very active in the middle of the night after the lights go out. Getting him socialized is turning out to be quite a challenge, but I'm very patient and I'm sure Puff and I will eventually figure each other out. And as we turn the corner, we come to my giant day gecko, Carl. Day geckos are known for being very shy and skittish. Carl's usually okay with my hand coming into his enclosure to feed him or clean, and sometimes he'll even lick a bit of food off my finger. But I have to move slow and steady because if I don't, he'll go nuts and even come flying out of the vivarium. But what Carl lacks in social skills, he makes up for with his beauty. One thing I love about Carl, aside from his beautiful colors, is all the different sizes and shapes of his scales. He's just so beautiful to look at. And next to Carl is the vivarium for my green and brown Anolis. The Anolis are just as flighty as Carl, but they're a little bit easier to care for because instead of flying out of the enclosure if they get spooked, they prefer to scatter and hide in the foliage in the back of the terrarium. I think Anolis are one of the most underrated reptile pets. They might not be the best for handling, but they are one of the most entertaining reptiles in this room. They have so much personality. They're constantly observing everything around them and always on guard to react with everything in their environment. Next to the Anolis is a shelf with a couple of tarantula slings and my jumping spider. There's a Chaco golden knee that I've named Muffin, and a golden blue-leg baboon that's named Jewel, and a Phidippus audax jumping spider named Red. And below Carl and the Anolis is another cabinet that I converted into a vivarium, and that's empty right now, but as soon as the Chaco golden knee is big enough, I think she'll go in there. Under the spiders is an 18 by 18 by 24 inch vivarium that's home to a group of 4 American green tree frogs, Jan, Marcia, Bobby, and Alice. It's a little bit of a surprise to me that these frogs are actually a little bit challenging to keep, mostly because they're so messy. They're completely indiscriminate about where they poop, and they poop a lot. They poop on the plants and they poop on the glass, and cleaning up after them is a constant challenge because they don't hesitate to jump out of the enclosure. But they make the most delightful chirping calls, and they have such peaceful and serene personalities. And around the corner again is a 40-gallon enclosure that is a very recent upgrade for my California king snake, Rex. Rex has only been in this enclosure for about a week, and most of the time he's been buried underground, so I don't have a lot of video of him in this enclosure. But I'm going to be doing a complete update video on Rex very soon, so you'll be seeing more of him in the future. And next to Rex is this big enclosure for my BCI boa constrictor, Ray. Ray is about a year and a half old now, and he's a really healthy and beautiful boa constrictor, and he's definitely grown. Ray's enclosure is 4 feet wide and 2 feet deep and 4 feet tall, and there's lots of limbs and branches for him to climb on. There are 2 ceramic heat emitters that give him a good basking spot, as well as a heat gradient from the top to the bottom, and a hide with a heat mat and thermostat on the bottom. Ray is very powerful and has a crazy strong feeding response, as you would expect from a boa constrictor. But he also has a great personality. He's never hissed or struck at me and loves coming out for handling and socialization time. I think of all the snakes in this room, Ray is the most beautiful. And to me, Ray is kind of the epitome of what people think of when they think of a snake. And on to the next wall is a newly remodeled vivarium for my 3 Dendrobates tinctorius powder blue dart frogs. This is a vivarium that I spend a lot of time watching, so having them up higher at eye level has been really nice. This particular species of dart frog is very bold and not shy at all. So they're very active and usually come up to greet me when I approach their vivarium. Underneath the dart frogs is my pair of eastern garter snakes, Daryl and Carol. If you follow the channel, then you know that Carol recently gave birth to a litter of 14 beautiful babies. Right now, the babies are quarantined in some enclosures in my office, and in a few more weeks, we'll be going to new homes. But I'll be keeping a few of them. As much as I've loved the experience of watching the babies being born and caring for them, it's not something I want to do every year. So when the babies are big enough to be added to the adults, I'll probably do 2 enclosures and keep the males and females separate. Although I'm a little torn about that, Daryl and Carol have been together since they were babies, and I'm kind of reluctant to split them up. So we'll see. In any case, I'll be doing an update video soon about the babies that I decide to keep. And it's going to be really fun watching them grow up and be added to the family. In the middle of this wall, next to the garter snakes, is one of my favorite vivariums, and this one is for my pair of tiger-legged monkey tree frogs, Basil and Parsley. I've talked before about how shy and reclusive these frogs are and how I very rarely see them. What I've learned about them is that they're actually very active, but at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I usually don't want to get up at 2 or 3 in the morning, but every now and then I do it anyway because I like to see them, and if anything, to just know that they're doing all right. And they're doing great. This is Basil, and I know that because he's a more purplish brown color, where Parsley is more green. I hear them a lot though. Even when they're hidden away, they make all kinds of sounds that go from pops and clicks to a very soft call that's hard to describe, but it's a very pretty and even mysterious kind of sound. And above Basil and Parsley is another spider. I did something different with this one and hung his enclosure in a plant hanger. According to iNaturalist, this is a barn funnel weaver spider. I found him underneath my ball python's enclosure when I did an upgrade for him. And at the time, it was still cold outside, so instead of putting him outside, I made him a home. Now here's the funny thing. That was March 13th, and I didn't even know until I learned about a week later that March 13th in the United States is National Save a Spider Day. So since then, I've tried to give this spider extra special care. And on the right side of this wall is my Crested Gecko Morgan. I've had Morgan for quite a while now, and if you follow the channel, then you know that Morgan absolutely does not tolerate being handled. He's actually less tame than my day gecko. But he is a beautiful gecko, and I love him just the same. And last but not least are these 2 big enclosures for my corn snake Pumpkin and my ball python Jerry. Building these enclosures was a lot of work, but both Pumpkin and Jerry have really loved the extra space and enrichment that these enclosures give them. Both Pumpkin and Jerry are hiding away right now, getting ready to shed their skin, so I'll have to show you some previous video of them. It is an odd coincidence, but I keep detailed records on all of the snakes, including when they shed. And for their last 5 sheds in a row, Jerry and Pumpkin have done it at exactly the same time. One thing I love about Pumpkin when he's about to shed is the color of his skin. He's usually a very vibrant orange color, but when he gets ready to shed, his orange color turns to a beautiful pink. Ball pythons can be a little bit of a challenge to keep. Jerry just finished a 12-week-long hunger strike, but a few weeks ago he finally ate, and I've now moved him up to medium-sized rats. Jerry, just like most ball pythons, can have a difficult time shedding if the conditions aren't just right. And this will be Jerry's first time shedding in this new enclosure. I've covered the top with glass and bumped up the misting to keep the humidity up, and hopefully it will all go well for him. So that concludes this reptile room tour. I hope you enjoyed seeing all of my amazing pets and their beautiful setups. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.